Hello everyone. Let's head on to our first case. Case 1. Am I the bad person for refusing to let my neighbor use my vintage bathtub for his therapy sessions? I, 28F, live in an old Victorian house I inherited from my grandfather. Most people don't believe me when I tell them the house is mine, but my parents are not in my life. My mom died from heart health complications and my dad was never really in the picture after elementary school. I had a really close relationship with my granddad growing up and loved visiting him in his home, so he left me the place in his will. One of the features of the house is the original clawfoot bathtub from the 1920s in the upstairs bathroom. I was originally going to look at having it removed, but kept putting it off due to the logistics of getting it out of the house and hiring people to help me. I used it out of necessity, and it may sound weird, but I eventually fell in love with it. It's spacious and it feels luxurious, like I'm some sort of old royal or something, lol. Over the past few years, I have researched how to care for it and only use special cleaners, and basically treat it like an antique. Enter my next door neighbor Dennis, 50M. Dennis is eccentric. He's into all these weird health trends, like grounding his feet in buckets of dirt for electrical balance or drinking filtered water taken from our local pond because it has earth nutrients. I don't think he's a heavy drug user and doesn't have an actual mental disability, but he definitely has some mental issues. Lately, he's gotten into hydrotherapy, which apparently requires him to soak in cold water for extended periods to reset his nervous system. I don't really talk with him much, but will regrettably run into him every so often since he always sits out on his front porch or meanders around his lawn. 2 weeks ago, Dennis came over and, completely out of the blue, asked if he could use my bathtub for his hydrotherapy sessions. I thought he was joking, but no, he earnestly explained that my tub was the perfect energy conduit because it was pre-industrial revolution and untainted by modern manufacturing processes. I told him no, obviously. I don't even let guests use that tub, let alone a rando wrinkly old dude who wants to fill it with ice water and do whatever nonsense he's into. Dennis did not take this well. He said I was being selfish with community resources and that because I inherited the house rather than buying it, I had a duty to share since I didn't work for it. He started bringing it up every time he saw me, passive-aggressively saying things like, "Must be nice to hoard that all to yourself." Then, somehow, this got out to the neighborhood Facebook group this week, who loves drama, and now half the street thinks I'm the villain for gatekeeping my own bathtub. This is just as absurd as it sounds. The cherry on top is Dennis conveniently claims that his shower stopped working too, so he doesn't even have a place to clean himself, not like this was a favorite pastime of his to begin with. I was trying to just avoid Dennis as much as I could and ignore the few comments from my neighbors until I ran into one of my neighbors while I was going for a walk yesterday evening. I don't really know her, but we chatted briefly and somehow the topic of Dennis and the bathtub came up. I was expecting some sympathy for the absurdity of this all, but this woman proceeds to tear into me. Like literal verbal assault, by the end of it asking me why I was being so stupid and selfish, that I have multiple bathrooms in the house and couldn't even spare it to help this old man's health. This morning I found a literal gift-wrapped bar of soap in my mailbox. There was no note or anything, but I assumed this was her insanely petty passive-aggressive way of telling me to shove it. I do not want this man soaking in my tub. I do not care about his nervous system reset. But now I feel like I'm losing my mind because everyone around me is acting like I'm some kind of selfish monster. I get that some of the people in the neighborhood aren't keen on me living here, but I live by myself and work and go to school all day, and I'm genuinely starting to worry that I'm gonna come home someday to find Dennis reclining in my tub. AITA? Also, for anyone wondering how Dennis knew about the tub, he's lived here for forever and helped my granddad do repairs back in the day, so he's seen the house. That said, he hasn't been in it, the house, not the bathtub, to my knowledge in at least 15 years. What do you guys think? Lay down your ruling in the comments section and let's move on to our next story. Case 2. Am I the bad person for telling a date the truth on why I, harshly, rejected them? I went on 4 to 5 dates with this guy I met on Bumble. We hit it off really well at first, he was funny and smart, and our conversation would go for hours on end. For preface, I'm Chinese and he's Russian. During the first 1 to 3 dates, he would make offhanded racist remarks about Asian people, i.e. Chinese people eating dog, Thailand have ladyboys, etc., but he was obsessed with Japan, insane, I know. He loves everything Japan, the food, the language, the culture, and thinks of himself as an awesome samurai warrior just because he took a single samurai class in Japan. I brushed off the first 2 to 3 comments because he seemed really nervous and babble, and I wasn't sure if I was going crazy because he'd immediately move on to another joke. I have told him in all seriousness I didn't find these jokes funny, and he'd apologize and say he'd never do it again. Well, today, he made another offhanded remark, like it just slips out of him, and I had enough. I said I finished my meal and was ready to go home, which he didn't mind because we'd been at the place for 3 hours at that point. I drove back home and he sent up a follow-up message that it was nice seeing me blah blah. I told him I wasn't interested in him anymore, and he was surprised given we had held hands and kissed on the third date. I think as a girl, I tend to come off as being interested or welcoming by laughing and still interacting with him despite it all. So he was surprised by my sudden rejection, and I told him the truth. I laid it on thick. I told him he was a racist who needs a reality check and should stop fetishizing Japan because no normal Asian woman would ever date you, and the TikToks you keep spamming me were annoying and not funny at all. Leave me alone. He blocked me afterwards, and when I told my friends about what happened, they said I was such an asshole in the way I acted, by giving him signals I was interested, and the way I texted him that rejection, but I don't think I am. Am I the bad person? What do you guys think of this one? Let us know in the comments section, and let's move on to our next story. Case 3. Am I the bad person for finally losing it on my mother-in-law after her criticizing how we raise our kids? I, 32F, have been married to my husband, 34M, for 8 years, and we have 2 kids, a 6-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. Ever since our first was born, my MIL, 60F, has had something to say about everything we do as parents. And not in a helpful way. We try to be gentle parents. We talk to our kids, help them understand their emotions, and don't believe in yelling or punishments just to assert authority or whatever. MIL hates this. She constantly says we're raising soft kids and that a good smack never did anyone harm. Okay, sure. One of her biggest issues is that we don't make our kids hug or kiss relatives if they don't want to. We've always told them their bodies are theirs and they can say no if they're uncomfortable. MIL thinks this is teaching them to be rude. Anyway, last weekend we went to a family gathering, and when we arrived, my son didn't want to hug her. He just smiled and said hi instead. MIL immediately went off about how disrespectful it was and how this is why kids today have no manners. I calmly told her, we let them decide when they're comfortable with physical affection. She rolled her eyes and mumbled, ridiculous. When I was raising kids, they weren't allowed to be like this. I let it go at first, but later, I overheard her talking to my husband in the kitchen. She was telling him that I was the problem and that he needed to man up and stop me from ruining our kids. I don't know what snapped in me, but I walked in and just let her have it. I told her I was done with her constant criticism, that we are raising our kids how we see fit, and if she couldn't respect that, then maybe she didn't need to be so involved in their lives at all. She immediately started crying, saying I was excluding her and being cruel. But my husband backed me up and told her that she needs to respect our boundaries. I don't know, maybe I could have handled it better. So, am I the bad person? Can't wrap my head around that story. What do you think? Who is in the wrong there? Let us know down in the comments section, and let's move on to our last case. Case 4. Am I the bad person for denying my sister's lies in front of her in-laws? I am 25F and have an older sister, Kate, 30F. She and I were never close due to our age difference and because she hated that our dad married my mom and had me after divorcing her mother. Kate claims dad told her he never loved her mother and that my mom was his true love, that our dad always compared the two of us and asked her why she has to be a difficult child and that overall dad loved me more. On the other hand, dad claims nothing she says is true, that she was very problematic and insolent. These claims are backed up by my mother and dad's parents, so I assume Kate was never 100% honest. Anyways, these are their problems that do not concern me. Some time ago, Kate reached out to me and told me she got engaged. I said congrats and everything. She told me she has a favor to ask. She told me her MIL is very family-oriented and it does not sit well with her that Kate is estranged from her family. In her words, future MIL considered something is also wrong with Kate and she is also to blame for being no contact with her family, fearing Kate will also influence her son to do the same thing. What Kate wanted from me was for me to meet her in-laws for them to see she does not hate her family. I joked that future MIL sounds a little insane and I agreed to help her because at the end of the day I never hated her and I don't think she hated me neither. The fact we are not close does not mean we hate each other or want bad things to happen to the other one. Anyways, I went to meet Kate, her future husband and her MIL and FIL at a restaurant. They are very nice people and very warm. At some point, MIL said something along the lines that she is happy to see that the abuse we suffered did not affect our sisterly bond. I was confused and asked what abuse is she talking about while Kate tried to change the subject. MIL says it's okay, I have nothing to be ashamed of, and that she knows from Kate our parents abused us while growing up. I clarified that this is not true. We were never abused by our parents or anyone in our family. We were raised in a very loving family. We were never hit or spanked no matter what we did. Our parents are well off, so we always had everything we wanted: clothes, phones, laptops, cars, etc. MIL got very, very angry. She apologized to me and started insulting my sister. She called her a liar, accused her of being manipulative and trying to insert herself into their family by being dishonest. What happens is that Kate accused our parents of many things that are not true. Now Kate is accusing me of ruining her life. She says her engagement is over, the in-laws hate her, and her fiancé does not trust her anymore. The thing is, I don't think I did anything wrong. I cannot sit and hear people blasting my parents for her lies and for things that never happened. But still, am I the bad person for telling the truth? You've sat down, you've listened. Now, it's time to state your ruling. What is it gonna be? Let us have it down in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more cases like these. In life, we may run, but we can never hide from true justice. Stay safe, everyone.